Let's get right into it. Welcome back to class, everyone. Today's explainer is, well, we're stepping into the totally wild, frankly bizarre biology classroom of the sky. Let's look at the data together because we need to completely shatter this illusion that you absolutely have to have a pair of feathered wings to take flight. Nature is just packed with plot twists, right? And today we're looking at animals that completely break the laws of physics, and honestly common sense, just to achieve airborne supremacy.
Raise your hand if you've ever looked at a penguin, waddling around in the snow and thought to yourself, come on, bro, you have literal wings. Why can't you fly, right? It is the ultimate irony of the animal kingdom. You've got birds perfectly equipped for the sky that just choose to waddle. And meanwhile, as you'll see today, there are entirely wingless creatures out there pulling off aerodynamic feats that would make your Thanksgiving turkey extremely jealous.
Okay, so here is today's syllabus. We're going to cover 1. The mammalian parachute. 2. Electrostatic arachnid flight. 3. Hydroaerodynamics with flying fish. 4. Amphibian directional descent. And 5. The evolutionary bottom line. Starting right off with Section 1, the mammalian parachutes, specifically squirrels, colugos, and living skin suits.
Now, the core scientific mechanism that makes this possible is called a patagium. But to put it in slightly less fancy science terms, this is basically a skin suit they never asked for. So when an animal with a patagium jumps off a high branch, it stretches out its arms and legs, deploying this membrane to become a living, breathing parachute. The underlying biology principle here, it's simply surface area plus air resistance equals survival. You know that absolutely terrifying feeling when you miss the last step on the stairs and for like 3 seconds you think you're an astronaut? Well, this is exactly how these mammals survive that exact sensation. It's not true flight, it is falling with intense style.
Let's compare two incredible examples here, the flying squirrel and the colugo. So the flying squirrel, which honestly is a terrible name since it's really just a glider, can travel up to 300 feet in a single leap. I mean, that is an entire football field. And nature actually gave them a cartilage spur at their wrist to steer. So they basically have handlebars made of bone. It's an absolute 11 out of 10 for adorable panic, especially when you realize they can't fly upward at all. And then you have the colugo. It's also known as the Sunda flying lemur, which is actually also a lie because it's definitely not a lemur. But it is the largest gliding mammal on Earth, with this massive patagium membrane stretching all the way from its face down to its tail.
And you really have to look at the sheer efficiency of the colugo, which is captured perfectly in this 10-to-1 ratio. When the colugo leaps, it can glide 450 feet forward while losing only 40 feet of altitude. That's a 10-to-1 glide ratio, which is, for sure, vastly better than the paper airplanes I used to make in the 5th grade. Now, on the ground, the colugo is completely useless. It drags its belly and kind of looks like a sock puppet that just totally gave up. But in the air, it is graceful, silent, and entirely terrifying to local moths. And you know the funniest part? It's an herbivore. This incredibly advanced biological flying machine developed these physics-defying survival tactics just to reach the next tree to eat a leafy salad. Honestly, highly relatable.
Moving right along to Section 2, electrostatic arachnid flight, ballooning spiders. We are shifting from our furry mammals to invertebrates, and class, I gotta warn you, things are about to get a little bit creepy.
If you've ever walked outside, taken a big yawn, and inhaled nothing, well, you're lucky. You could have easily inhaled a baby spider. The scientific mechanism they use to travel is called ballooning. This is an extreme colonization and survival strategy where spiders literally ride the planet's electric fields and atmospheric boundary layers. Think about that for a second. They aren't just catching a breeze of wind, they are plugging into static electricity. It is absolutely mind-blowing.
Let's actually walk through the step-by-step sequence of this launch mechanism. So first, the baby spider climbs up to a very high point. Second, looking very dignified, it points its abdomen straight up to the sky. Third, it shoots out multiple strands of silk that fan out to form a triangle. It's essentially a tiny demon kite. And finally, they just wait to catch the planet's static electric field, and whoosh, they launch into the atmosphere.
And when I say they launch into the atmosphere, I literally mean it. These wingless nightmares have been found at staggering heights of 2.5 miles up in the air. 2.5 miles. That is higher than some clouds. It really is a testament to how wild evolutionary mechanisms can be when species absolutely need to disperse and survive.
And to see just how incredibly effective this strategy is, consider Charles Darwin. He caught thousands of these ballooning spiders on the rigging of his ship a full 60 miles away from land. Just imagine trying to study evolution while actively vacuuming spiders out of your beard.
As a survival and colonization tactic, ballooning is unparalleled. Spiders don't need boats to colonize islands, they just need a light breeze, a static charge, and absolutely zero self-preservation instincts.
All right, that brings us to Section 3, Hydroaerodynamics, starring the flying fish, nature's double jumpers.
Okay, I want you to picture a standard, slimy, glub-glub fish. Now imagine that fish looking at the ocean and deciding it would rather vibe with the seagulls. The flying fish is a glorious middle finger to marine biology. Because they don't have wings, they have overgrown pectoral fins. Here is their kinetic launch sequence. First, a predator chases them, so they swim at a blistering 40 miles per hour underwater. When that's not fast enough, they floor it, tilt upward, and breach the surface. They then slap their tail an incredible 50 times per second to launch into the air. And the absolute best part? When they start to drop, they just slap their tail on the water surface again to boost right back up. This is a double jump. A fish literally invented the mechanics of hitting a Mario coin block in midair way before video games ever existed.
And their flight stats are genuinely staggering. They can stay airborne for up to 45 seconds and cover distances of 600 feet. That's enough to clear a massive cruise ship. This mechanism is so structurally impressive and efficient that scientists actually study them for drone designs. It turns out a fish escaping a predator is occasionally a far better aerospace engineer than Boeing.
Ultimately, this extreme kinetic capability serves a highly specific evolutionary purpose: high-speed predator evasion. This survival tactic is a flawless 10 out of 10 recommendation for anyone, or, any fish, who really hates sharks. It is the ultimate escape hatch.
Section 4, Amphibian Directional Descent, the Paradoxical Flying Frog.
Now, have you ever met someone who is terrible at everything but absolutely refuses to quit? Well, that is this frog. It basically looks like a green stress ball with legs. Let's look at the concept of directional descent. Unlike the massive skin flaps of the colugo we saw earlier, this frog has very minimal adaptations, mostly just slightly webbed feet. When it leaps, it just spreads its limbs out like a starfish having a seizure. Scientists politely call it directional descent, but if we're being completely honest with ourselves, it is just highly controlled crashing.
It isn't graceful at all, but here is exactly why it's brilliant. It only glides about 50 feet. However, while it is plummeting through the canopy, it has the miraculous ability to steer up to 90 degrees mid-air to hit a specific target. I mean, it can parallel park its own body better than most of your friends can parallel park their cars. It's literally screaming through the air going, "Look at me, I am the terror of the canopy." Thud. Yep, totally meant to do that.
And this gives us the ultimate survival verdict for the paradoxical frog. It doesn't need to be perfect. Evolution is remarkably practical. This frog simply needs to get from one tree branch to the next tree branch without becoming a snake's lunch. Ugly flying is still flying. As long as it works, the trait gets passed down to the next generation of terrible yet surviving gliders.
And that brings us to Section 5, the evolutionary bottom line. Let's quickly review today's lesson. So we've learned that squirrels are liars wearing skin suits, spiders are static-powered airborne kites, flying fish are real-world jet planes with double jump capabilities, and frogs crash with immense confidence. Which brings us to the absolutely most important point of the day. Evolution isn't about being perfect, it's about being just good enough not to die. These animals looked at gravity and the laws of physics, laughed, and jumped off the branch anyway because they had to survive. So listen, the next time you trip on the sidewalk and frantically flail your arms for 1 second of glide, don't feel embarrassed. You aren't clumsy. You are just directionally descending.
Thank you so much for joining me in today's Explainer. Be sure to like and subscribe if you've ever tied a bedsheet around your neck and pretended it was a cape. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final question to ponder. Which of these animals would you trust to fly you to school? Personally, I'm taking the spider. Actually, scratch that. I'm taking a boat. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you in the next one.